Thank you so much for having me virtually in your homes or dorm rooms or wherever you're watching this. I wish there was an NBCU Academy when I was your age 20 years ago, roughly. But this has become very quickly a fantastic way to introduce students and aspiring journalists to the business. So that's our goal today. Occasionally people will ask, to what do you attribute success or any modicum of success that you've had in this business? And for me, I always tell folks that three things. First of all, I always said yes, perhaps even now, maybe too much so, but I start with yes. And I also, I understood that you don't start at the Today Show. You kind of you start wherever they sort of put you to a certain extent, and you work your way up, and you learn the skill set that's required for that next job that you want. And the third thing is we'll talk some more about this because we've got three folks who are perfectly suited to talk about this part in particular. I've always had fantastic mentors who were honest with me and who still are. So on that note, let me bring in our panel here because we've got three fantastic folks that I want to introduce you to here. And Nika, I'll start with you because you've done a fair amount of hiring over the course of your career. What are some of the characteristics, some of the traits that you look for in job applicants?
To me, your attitude and your hunger and your eagerness, and are you a team player? Are you a nice person to work with? Those are things that are important to me. I remember I had a couple of interns who, when I was EPing Katie Tur's show, and they would literally battle each other for who could come up with the best idea. And they outpitched the actual segment producers on my show to the point where I actually, after one morning meeting, said, hey guys, why don't you guys go out there, get some work done? I'm just going to keep talking to the segment producers. And I said, are any of you embarrassed that our interns are outpitching you? Because I would be. They would find out, if they knew we had guests booked for a show, they would research those guests. They would know what those guests tweeted. They would have some suggested questions. Here's what I want to ask this guest, or here's some research on that person. And so that's what I'm talking about. Those people who are willing to dig beneath the surface and say, hey, there's no task that's too small for me to do if it's going to help me get to my goal.
And Tammy, you are you're the first line of defense, if you will, so to speak. Before someone would meet and Nika, they would have to go through Tammy Fine. And one of the things that I hear from a lot of folks, especially college students and grad students who want to get into the business, they don't have a lot of work experience. What would you say to some of those folks who would perhaps like to do what we do on some level, but they just don't have the resume?
The great equalizer is preparation. Anybody can do preparation for reaching out to a recruiter, for reaching out for a job. And by preparation, I mean, what is it about MSNBC that interests you? Or what is it about NBC that interests you? Are you curious? So much can be made up. I'll be honest, I actually love people who didn't work in TV because I feel like I can teach anybody TV. I can't teach people how to think. I can't teach them to be innately curious. So when I get a resume and somebody sends me a note, and I would say the big thing is notes should be like advertising. You should have a message of who you are and why we want you. And that should be pithy and one paragraph. If you send me 4 paragraphs, I promise you I will not read it. If you send me one tight, great paragraph about why you want to work here and what you're interested in, that grabs people. And so by preparation, I mean, if you know your resume has nothing in TV, then why are you interested in working in news? Is it a story that you followed that you felt was really powerful for you? Is it something that you've experienced in your life? Is it something that you see that you think you could bring to the table? All of those things as a recruiter are incredibly important in trying to create a newsroom that looks like society. And so I would say you need to come in knowing that, and, you know, and you'll see a lot of this from LinkedIn when you follow us, is there's a lot of tips on the best way to pitch yourself, because that's really what you're doing. You're pitching yourself, and you can steal a lot from marketing on how to do that.
Tiffany, I mean, when you're screening candidates, what are you looking for? What are some of the things that really stand out to you?
A lot of it is, are you being your genuine self, right? Am I talking to you, or am I talking to a version of you that you think I want you to be, right? I would much rather meet you, because at the end of the day, that's who we're bringing into NBC, not this person. And I know that it's, you know, it can be nerve-wracking to have the conversation, but at the end of the day, it's a conversation. I want to know you. I want to know what you want. I want to know why you want it. I want to know what you've done and why you've done it, and just really, really know you, because I genuinely want to put you in the best place. You know, I want you to love your job once you're here. So that's my tidbit.
That's good. Before we get to Drew here, Drew's got a tip on some good advice from LinkedIn on telling your story. Before we get to that, just I would add one nugget. Anytime someone has ever put a candidate in front of me, whether it's someone, you know, my assistant or it's a producer, whoever, I always take note of folks who ask questions. At the end of a conversation, if I say, hey, do you have any questions? And you don't have a single question, that kind of tells me all I need to know about perhaps your skills as a budding journalist. Just putting that out there. Do with that what you will. But Drew's got another high energy set of tips here. Drew?
To me, storytelling is my superpower. And I think about the fact of how important it is for you to tell your own story and to own your story, is because think of all the products that are out there in the marketplace, right? In that sometimes the only difference between one product versus the other one is the story that we attach to that product. It's the difference between me buying this versus me buying that. Your story is so important to how you manage your career, in talking about not only what you've done and how to showcase it in the best possible way, but that's not just in person. That's also telling your story in digital spaces, how you manage your image and how you manage your professional profile, whether on LinkedIn or in any other space, is going to be really important to your career. Here's the way I think about it, not only as a hiring manager, but as a professional myself, is that if I can't trust you to tell your own story, then how can I trust you to tell my company's story or mine? So how you manage your story and your image is really important for anyone who's thinking about hiring you. So that means that you, as a communications professional or as a journalist, you don't have the option that a lot of other people have to say crazy things on the internet or say crazy things in social media and on social platforms. Your bar is just set higher, because the way you tell your story is not just what I see in front of me right now. It is the collection of how you've told your story historically as well. And so managing your image and your story, that's important to your career long term.
Let's do some discussion surrounding relationship building and networking as we've come to know it. And you know what, Tiffany, let me start with you on that one, because I would imagine have been forced to do a lot of networking in your role.
Yes, networking is just really getting to know, you know, your peers in your industry, and it goes both ways, right? It's not just, you know, these are all the things that I need you to know about me. Like, listen to, what are they doing? Where have they been? Where are they going? And it's a conversation. And I typically say it's just a conversation. I happen to be an extrovert, so I'm happy to talk to anyone about anything. You know, for folks that are not, it's a little, you just have to stretch that muscle a little bit when you haven't done it. When you've been in a classroom where all of your peers are, you know, you're all put together, you have to do projects together and stuff like that. It's easier. You just have to stretch that muscle a bit, reach out to someone, have one conversation, start with the people that you know, right? Like, what do your aunts and uncles do? What do your friends do? Where did your friends from school go? What are they doing now? So start with people that you're comfortable with, and just maintain those relationships. Follow them on, you know, their social media sites, like their LinkedIn and stuff like that. And just keep tabs on it. And it's a relationship, right? Like, just like a friendship, just like the other relationships that you have.
Tammy, I understand that you've got some unique insights on this on relationship building, especially as it relates to building a career.
So, I'm a big fan of when you want to connect with people, and I actually think social media has made it so much easier. I didn't have LinkedIn when I was looking for my first jobs. I had to actually write a letter, put a stamp on it, and hope that somebody saw it and read it. And so what I would say is, if there are shows that you love, let's say you're a news person and you love Maddow, like Tiffany did. Go on to LinkedIn, search who the executive producer is, and just send them a note and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm a fan. I watch your show every night, and I really liked this particular story. Done. That's it. As Craig said, it doesn't come immediate with an ask. It's just a sort of, I want you to know that I appreciate the work you do.
So I think it's that, and it's also maintaining that relationship every couple of months or so. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I just worked on this project. Would you mind taking a look at this link of something that I did? I know there might not be any job openings right now, but can we stay in touch over the next few months? Those kinds of things matter. And those people who are persistent and keep those connections going over time are likely to stick with me in my mind when I'm looking for that next PA or that next AP or whatever the case may be.
Tammy or Tiffany, this may be more along your lines here about cover letters. Like, how long should a cover letter be? What should a cover letter highlight? And perhaps just as important, what should a cover letter not be? What should you leave out?
So your cover letter should not just be a repetition of what your resume is, right? Like, I have that, I read it twice, right? I know what I'm looking for, and I read that. Your cover letter, again, should be, if there are skills that you don't have, especially if there are skills that you don't have, explain why you actually do have them. Explain how it might not look like you have them, but you have them because you did X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, explain how you can learn them or what you have been doing to learn them. A lot of the times there's, we get candidates all the time, for an AP, let's say, they need to know an Avid, and they've never worked anywhere where Avid was a thing. They didn't have to use it. They'll go and they'll take those courses on their own time, and so highlighting certain things that might look like, they wouldn't be the best fit for the job. In your cover letter, if you explain to me why you are the best person for the job, it's a bonus.
Someone wrote in, I talk about pitching a lot in my courses and how important that is to media, especially journalism. Could you talk about the importance of pitching and how selling ideas are vital to a career in media?
I can take that one. Pitching is the crux of what we do, right? We go out, we find stories, we find ideas, and then we say, how can I tell that story? Who can I tell that story with? Who are my cast of characters? I mean, everything that we do in a newsroom, everything we put on the air, everything we write starts with a good idea and a good pitch, right? Every time we send a story out or a reporter out to do a story, that starts with a good pitch. So to me, you cannot pitch enough. You should be doing that every day, every week, until, and no pitches are perfect, right? You're not going to knock it out the park. You're going to get, for every 10 pitches, you're going to get 9 rejections, right? So learn to live with rejection. That's how you get better. By failing at something, you learn. But it is absolutely critical to what we do, and it should be well thought out. A pitch is not a link to a story and and a headline. A pitch is, here's the story. Here is a paragraph about how I would like to do that story and who I would like to do it with, and here is the arc of how we can tell that story or develop it into something bigger. So absolutely important to what we do as journalists.
Any tips when reaching out to recruiters without being too direct about a particular job you have in mind?
I'll take that one. So how you approach a recruiter who is likely getting hundreds and hundreds of emails can go a very long way. Being able to even start an email with, I hope you're having a good day. I know you're looking for great people. Let me make your life easier and tell you why I'm the person you should put forward for this job. Using your skill set to understand what the needs are of the person that you are reaching out to will help you so much more than just an ask. It's just a turn of phrase sometimes, but it goes a long way. And so I would think about who is the receiving end of what you're sending and how can you speak to them?
I would just add, and while it may seem obvious, you would be surprised, even if it's an email that's 4 or 5 sentences, proofread it. There's nothing worse than having, 3 grammatical mistakes in a 6-line email or a cover letter or resume with misspellings, those are the ones that I immediately, I'm like, oh, they didn't care enough to even read it over, clearly.
And
So,
don't get a name wrong. If you get a name wrong,
oh,
yeah.
when looking at a resume, how is the success or potential of a candidate measured? Are learning experiences considered as valuable as work/internship experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I guess it depends on the recruiter. If I'm reading your resume, yes. If like I said before, if you don't have all the skill sets that that I definitely need, I'm reading and I'm trying to see where where those fillers are, like where you might have that skill set. But I would tell everyone also, like, looking for a job, make sure you're applying to the right role. That's going to measure the success, right? And I get folks who apply to entry-level roles and mid-career roles and senior roles, all in the same, right? That just tells me you don't know the business. You don't understand the business. So read the job description, read the requirements. If it says you need 7 years and you're right out of school, don't apply for that role. It's not a good one. And out of all the applications, like, I'm less likely to see the one that you're actually a fit for, right? If I see you in all of these different roles. So know what you're applying for. If the skill sets are a match, if they're super close and I can see something in there that tells me you're hungry, you'll have a better shot.
We'll do one more question here before we get final thoughts. And then, you know what? This is a simple question, but I think it's a really good question. Conducting yourself in an interview, what advice would you give? What guidance would you give?
First of all, do your research. Come prepared with questions, with good questions. Come prepared with some knowledge about the job that you're applying for. If you are coming to if you're applying for a job with MSNBC Weekends, know something about the shows that are on the air. Know something about the hosts. Know something about which shows you like or are more acclimated to than others. And I'm looking to see who you are and what kind of motivates you, why you want this job, and be prepared to tell me why you're the best person for this job. Right? Why should I choose you? Assume that you're going up against, 500 other candidates. Why should I choose you? What is it about you that makes you unique?
And some parting thoughts here.
My last helpful hint is going to be, when you put your resume in for any job, save it as a PDF with your first name dot last name, because recruiters see about 1,000 resumes. And when you're in a file and it's just called resume 2021 or my favorite resume or resume version 83, I have no idea who you are. But if I remember you and I'm quickly looking for someone to fill a job, I'm going to remember that Tammy.Fine was that person who was a great researcher, and I'm going to pull you quickly. So if you take nothing else from this, do not submit for any jobs without your resume in that format.
Very useful.
I'm going to give more lofty advice and less practical advice, but your lived experience matters. I am from Mississippi, small town in Mississippi, and somehow right now I am a senior executive producer at MSNBC, and that's because I made my personal story, my personal narrative work for me. And whatever your personal story, your narrative is, it can work for you. I had one young intern who had never had a job in TV, but she had a hunger. And she told me that she's not only going to school, but she moved in with her grandmother so that she could help take care of her grandmother when she's not going to school and working a job. I decided to hire that girl on the spot as an intern, and she went on to work at Morning Joe, and now she's doing she has some other great job somewhere else in the business. And so it's people like that, even though she didn't have any practical experience, she had a personal narrative that really told me this is a girl who would work her, off at anything I asked her to do. And that's exactly what she did. So make your personal narrative, your personal story work for you, because your lived experience matters.
I just want to reiterate some of the things our panel said. Curiosity, take that with you as you go on your job search. Preparation, huge key. Please do that. Advertising, I love the way Tammy put together advertising message. That's what you need to say in your email. Pithy, one paragraph. Why do you want to work here? And keep pitching yourself. Keep working on your story. We want to hear from you. Check out NBCUacademy.com. We have a ton of explainer videos, things to help you prepare. We'll have more from Drew McCaskill from LinkedIn, the career expert. He's actually going to do a deep dive on how to use and leverage LinkedIn best. So we hope you look for that, and you will get that because you attended today. You will get that in an email from us. But again, urge you to go to NBCUacademy.com, and we will also provide you with contact information for all of the panelists you've heard from today. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time at our next event.